Let an oasis of calm greet you at the end of each day with manicured gardens, pathways, parks, bicycle tracks, and so much more. Whether you're upscaling or settling down, buying a first home or investing,
Solana has it all. Uganda is now open to the world.
Ennyanja emiragimanyidde olwawo n'omukka gusensebula kumbira ku nku. Weewunya ettagali ng'ono kyerine gy'ayitamu. Weefune ka Starbex gas leero. Ng'owe Kampala ogula Starbex gas tumukutuusako ku bwereere. Bw'oba tolina ssente mu buliwo osobola okusasula ng'okozesa MTN Momo merchant code 315794 oba Airtel 1161 nooti 3 nooti 7 nooti 9743592. Okumanya ekisingako awo kuba ku nooti 7 nooti 6 nooti 18859 oba nooti 7 nooti 6 nooti 1971 nooti 393 nooti 180 nooti. Starbex gas kagas keko.
Kalikumtima and Company Advocates.
I am a legal practitioner, the chief executive partner of Kalikumtima and Company Advocates. It is a one-stop solutions center tailored to make a legal difference to our clients. We have the necessary diversity to meet their needs.
Kalikumtima and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality. For more information, visit our website www.
Faster, fresher, and better than before. We've given our app a makeover. The new Vision Digital Experience is now the Vision Digital Experience. The future of media is here and it's looking bright. Check out the Vision Digital Experience app to have a feel of the fresh look, faster speed and exciting new TV and radio channels and so much more. Download the app on App Store or Google Play Store now. Vision Digital Experience, the future of media.
We license we regulate and supervise all schemes in this country that save members' funds for retirement. We also regulate and supervise the service providers that play in this space to provide the professional expertise. All schemes in this market are first registered with us in order to play in the space. That is one entry point, and subsequently they meet all the regulatory requirements for licensing. They need to have a trust deed, which is reviewed by us to ensure that it provides the protection to members, not to the sponsor or the employer, and to ensure that all funds shall be invested well, and all the necessary details in terms of members' data and how they will join and exit are taken care of. The second point is to ensure that all service providers that play in the space are also registered and licensed. They meet the minimum requirements in order to support the investment of those funds. When a scheme is established, the trustees are also licensed by us to ensure that they're fit and proper in order to serve you as members. And their roles are quite enormous. They have a huge mandate. They have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that they appoint the service providers I mentioned of, and to ensure that they execute their work and also submit all the documentation as provided for or as required by the regulator.
Housing loan funa loan okuva ku sinya bitwala 2 okutuukira ddala ku miliyoni 5 beddu ozimba amakago mpola oba otereze byetagisa ku nnyumba yo ng'amazzi amasannyalaze kusereka kusiiga kusiba kikomera oba ekyetaago kyonna looni ogigoberako ennaku 3 zokka ogisasulira emyaka 3 tukubire ku ssimu ebaako ssaawa 24 ate nga si yakusasulira 0800 2
oba tukyalireko ku matabi gaffe ag'enjawulo okumanya ebisingawo.
Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
UNICAF University, the leading Pan-African institution, is now in Uganda offering $1 million worth of scholarships. Apply now to receive a scholarship for an accredited bachelor degree. Master new skills and gain expert knowledge from top academics. UNICAF University offers flexible programs so you can study anytime, anywhere. Join the new education era today. Call 077 197 6750. Visit our campus at Plot 53B, Natinda 2 Road, Naguru, Kampala.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and gets a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution, or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone, or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312-206-400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
We protect your money.
There will be moments in life when things will come to a halt despite all the drive you have. Get empowered to get to where you're going. Get empowered to do more for yourself with Post Bank Smart ATMs and take advantage of our up to 60 smart ATMs for instant cash deposits, cardless withdrawals, and quick card issuance at our branches. Post Bank, empowering you. Post Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda.
Across Uganda, a new dawn in luxury living awakens. Solana Lifestyle and Residences is Uganda's newest, most prestigious and award-winning lifestyle destination, an address for those who dream differently. At Solana, you're close enough to the hustle of the city, but far enough to come home to a sanctuary of smart living. Join a community of like-minded individuals where everything is taken care of and safety and security come standard, where each community has a clubhouse, play area, pool, and other incredible features. Let an oasis of calm greet you at the end of each day with manicured gardens, pathways, parks, bicycle tracks, and so much more. Whether you're upscaling or settling down, buying a first home or investing,
Solana has it all. Uganda is now open to the world.
Ennyanja emiragimanyidde olwawona omukka gusensebula afumbira ku nku. Weewunya ettagali ng'ono kyerine gy'ayitamu. Weefune ka Starbex gas leero. Ng'owe Kampala ogula Starbex gas tumukutuusako ku bwereere. Bw'oba tolina ssente mu buliwo osobola okusasula ng'okozesa MTN Momo merchant code 315794 oba Airtel 1161 nooti 3 nooti 7 nooti 9743592. Okumanya ekisingako awo kuba ku nooti 7 nooti 6 nooti 18859 oba nooti 7 nooti 6 nooti 1971 nooti 393 nooti 18 nooti. Starbex gas kagas keko.
and Company Advocates.
I am a legal practitioner, the chief executive partner of Kalikumtima and Company Advocates. It is a one-stop solutions center tailored to make a legal difference to our clients. We have the necessary diversity to meet their needs.
and Company Advocates, translating visions into reality. For more information, visit our website www.
Faster, fresher, and better than before. We've given our app a makeover. The new Vision Digital Experience is now the Vision Digital Experience. The future of media is here and it's looking bright. Check out the Vision Digital Experience app to have a feel of the fresh look, faster speed and exciting new TV and radio channels and so much more. Download the app on App Store or Google Play Store now. Vision Digital Experience, the future of media.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've all had your lunch. Welcome back to the afternoon session. For the people online, we hope you had something to eat. We've been blessed to a sumptuous meal by the Commonwealth Resort at Munyonyo. Those that are joining us, please do join us quickly because we're transitioning into the afternoon sessions, which are the breakout sessions. Once again, I'm Brian Kambaho from Acadia as your MC for the day. But first, we really want to thank our partners. Thank you so much for your support, starting with Abmark Associates, Deposit Protection Fund, the Uganda Bankers Association, Denton's, Vision Group, Kampala Associated Advocates, the Insurance Appeals Tribunal, the Civil Aviation Authority, Marks Advocates, KTA Advocates, LegalMark Advocates, NSSF, UNICAF, Kagwan Kagwa, Postbank, Ahaki, Afia na Ahaki, Sprint Uganda, which has provided our internet. Thank you so much. The Uganda National Oil Company, the Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, Ebi and David Africa, Starbucks, Mobicast, Kalikuumutima and Company Associates, Spear Motors Limited, Strathmore University, KCB Bank, SMS Construction, Uganda Breweries Limited, the East African Law Society, Shinubi Musoke, Centenary Bank, Uganda Registration Services Bureau, the Judiciary, Kasiri Byarhanga and Company Advocates, Stanbic, Uganda Limited, Uganda Holdings Limited, Deloitte, Otis Africa, BDO, MTN, Riparelio Group, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Citadel Advocates, Katende Sempebwa Advocates, ALP East Africa, Airtel, Housing Finance, Smart Case Manager, Lexworth, Law Agency. As you can see, we had many sponsors coming out this year and they gave over and above. Some have contributed in kind. Some have been generous to be here. They have good stalls up there. Please feel free to visit their stalls. Well, before we break out into our sessions, I wanted to invite Mr. President to make an important communication, and then we'll break out in our different rooms. Thank you for bearing with us, and we apologize for starting late, a few minutes later. Mr. President, please welcome him with a round of applause.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you, Brian. I just want to say thank you to all of you for attending this year's annual law conference. I also want to thank our sponsors and each one of you because you have made it. You've made it worthwhile. Our annual awards will not be done this afternoon because most of the invited guests who are supposed to be able to hand over these awards are not able to make it. So we have decided to do this at our annual law dinner. We shall also take that opportunity to recognize others among our profession that have also excelled. So we will do everything together during the annual law dinner. So with those few remarks, I'll hand over to Brian to just direct us to the session where we have, I think, about six sessions to just direct us to the sessions. And please remember, from 4 p.m., we have a cocktail immediately after the last session, and we thank Uganda Breweries Limited for being able to sponsor that cocktail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you've all taken note of that important communication. We apologize once again for the inconveniences. So, for the breakout rooms, if you all have your books, I believe there was a small typing error and 2 rooms were allocated the same hall. So to clarify, the oil and gas plenary session on energy transition debate, perspectives and opportunities from Uganda's oil and gas and mining industry will go to Victoria Hall. All the halls are just downstairs, so please do head out. The moderator will be Asmahani Saad, who is the managing partner at KTA Advocates. Then the next panel, which is Sustaining Legal Practice in Complex Legal Emergencies, Lessons from Selected Countries, will go to Rigo Hall. It's also downstairs and will be moderated by Sanyu Penelope and Mr. Ibrahim Nsereko. Revitalizing legal education, is it time to rethink how and what we teach in law schools and universities? Will go to Albert Hall and will be moderated by Hope Athaire, the Director, Legal and Corporate Services at Uganda Development Corporation. Then finally, the Smart Contracts for Construction, a Paradigm Shift, will go to Mera Hall. That's M-E-E-R-A, and will be moderated by Gertrude Muwanga, the CEO at Green Building Council. Please do note that it will be a 1 hour, maximum 1 hour and 10 minutes. Then we'll transition. There'll be another breakout session in these halls. And whereas we have 4 sessions now, the next will be 3 sessions in Victoria, in Albert, and in Mera Hall. Please move there. I believe some of the panelists are already in those rooms. For the online community, please do stay with us, and we hope you have good community, good connectivity. Thank you so much. Let's move. Yes, all the halls are downstairs. Oh, this is... What is here? This is Victoria Hall. So what is here is the oil and gas plenary session that is happening right now. Okay? For the other 2, that is Rigo Hall, Albert Hall, and Mera Hall are downstairs. So those that are interested in the health element, please go to Rigo Hall. Those that are interested in teaching and university education, go to Albert Hall. And those that are interested in smart contracts for construction, please go to Rigo Hall. So for those that are in this hall, I would like to invite Asmahani Saad to come and introduce her panel. Asmahani Saad will be our moderator. She's currently the managing partner and head of corporate and commercial and projects at KTA for over 14 years. She has advised local, regional, and international institutions on oil and gas, project financing, infrastructure development, mining, national content, including joint venture structuring, regulatory, and compliance. In 2022, she was named Managing Partner of the Year, Small Practice category, by Africa Legal Awards and recognized among Uganda's top 40 under 40. Asmahani has served and continues to serve in different leadership positions. She's a non-executive director at United Bank of Africa, a member of the first ever inaugurated Investment Advisory Committee that advises the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development on the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve Fund, and a trustee of the Greater African Initiative, a non-government organization. She serves as a member of East African Law Society Oil and Gas Committee. She heads the Uganda Law Society National Natural Resources Cluster, in which she actively engages with the Parliament of Uganda and has contributed to the passing of the East African Crude Oil Act, the Public Finance Management Amendment Act, and the Income Tax Amendment Act 2021. She serves as a member of the ICAMEC Women in Dispute Resolution Committee. She's a project management professional, an accredited mediator to the High Court Commercial Division, a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. She's passionate about service, mentorship, and professional development for young professionals. She's a mentor with Girls for Girls Uganda and a member of Rotary Club. Please welcome with me Asmahani Saad. I believe she'll be introducing her panelists. Asmahani, please take us away.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. You're very full. Should I say that? Okay. Since I have the honor to actively engage in this very, very heavy subject, and it's after lunch, I will ask for your permission that I indulge your physical capabilities. So let's get up, please. For those who know me know I love to dance, but I won't subject you to that. But we'll try to shake a little bit so we can, Are we together? I know you're lawyers, and please don't sue me after this. Okay, so let's get our hands up. You can high five your neighbor. Nice. Okay, down. I don't know. Okay, move a bit. So just get it down a bit. Yeah. To those who can to your toes. Those who can to your toes. Those who can't to your knees. Okay, and then just clap it to down. All right, how do you feel? How do you feel? Better? You're ready for this energy transition, climate change, oil and gas, mining, Obabichi? We are ready? All right. Okay, so our topic is on energy transition, which is a very, very interesting topic. And I am sure, being in a room full of learned friends, we've at least picked this up somewhere. So it's a matter of having this conversation from the different perspectives, especially in the most active sectors that we have right now. Energy, that is oil and gas, that we picked out, and then mining. But the conversation will also highlight a few other sectors that are within this whole energy transition debate. So what we'll be looking at are the perspectives and opportunities from Uganda's oil and gas and industry, and mining industry. So on my panel, I am very, very honored and feel like I don't even have the heart to introduce my eminent panelists, but I'll attempt to. So on my panel, I have Dr. Victoria Nalule. Dr. Victoria Nalule is a lawyer and a renowned expert in climate change, energy and mining law. She's a holder of a PhD in international energy law and policy from Dundee, UK, CEO of Nalule Energy and Minerals Consultants, and she is currently lecturing energy and mining at the University of Bradford in UK. Dr. Nalule, you're welcome. Please take your seat. Joining us online is Professor Raphael Heffron. I need to confirm if he's on. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Professor Raphael Heffron is a professor in energy justice, the social contract and sustainability at the University de Pau de Despies something in France. I have tried, at least I said de and Pau and something. Okay, so he's been awarded and recognized by the European Commission for his work in low carbon economy. He was appointed senior counsel at Johnson Law in Brussels, Belgium. He's a qualified barrister in law and a graduate of both Oxford and Cambridge universities. Professor, you're welcome. And I will task you to just help me relay that name to my to my room full of learned friends when we get to you. Next on the panel, we have Counsel Barbara Daisy Nabuweke. She is an advocate of the High Court of Uganda. She holds a master's degree from the University of Cambridge, a diploma in law. She is commercial projects oil and gas lawyer with over 10 years of experience, and she's currently the head of contracts and negotiations at the Uganda National Oil Company. Barbara, you're welcome. Next on my panel is Counsel Sandra Mwesije. Sandra is an advocate of the High Court of Uganda, has a master's in oil and gas from the University of Aberdeen in the UK. She has over 14 years of legal experience, several years in oil and gas as both in-house counsel and in the public sector. She is currently the head of legal for CNOC Uganda Limited. Next on my panel is Counsel Dennis Kusasira. Dennis is a partner at Abmark Advocates, an advocate of the High Court. He specializes in advising project developers, sponsors, lenders on procurement, transactional and regulatory matters in mining, oil and gas, and power projects in Uganda. He holds a master's in law and policy from the Center of Energy, Petroleum and Mining Law and Policy in the University of Dundee, UK. Last but not least, though I don't see him in the room, I don't know if he's going to be online. Ah, there you are. Okay. Last but not least is Counsel Ellison Karuhanga. Ellison Karuhanga is a partner with Kampala Associated Advocates. He heads the Department of Litigation and Energy Law. He is very, very well renowned and very, very knowledgeable, has a master's in oil and gas from the University of Aberdeen. He's a member of the Association of International Energy Negotiators, and he's a member of GOXI, which is part of the World Bank's Institute Governance for Extractive Industry Programs. So you're welcome. Wow. Okay, so I will handle from this side. All right. So I will start off. Like I said, it's a very heavy topic, and I would like us to start off by just debunking some of these things. They sometimes sound like too much Luzungu. So we need to kind of bring it down to us, first of all, to our level as lawyers, so that we are able to translate this to our clients who really need to understand this as simply as possible. So I will start with Dr. Nalule. Dr. Nalule, you are, it's interesting that you are from the academia, but at the same time you're from the practitioners space as well. So I would want you to kickstart us off by just, giving us a very simplistic understanding of the whole energy transition. What do we mean? What is this whole topic about? And then how do we drive it back home to Uganda, especially in our oil and gas and mining sectors? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll start by mentioning that I'm an author of 8 books so far, but by the end of this year, we shall have made 10 books. So I do have some of my books here. They're focused on energy, oil, gas, the mining sector, and I got my PhD below the age of 30 years. I know most people always ask, how can you be a doctor? So I'll just mention that. So the energy transition, it's a very interesting topic. It's a global topic, but also it's a topic that we need to be concerned about in Uganda. So simply put, with the energy transition, we're talking about a shift from fossil fuels to renewables. Fossil fuels include oil, gas, coal, and the debate out there is, it's time for us to leave these resources and focus more on cleaner forms of energy. And why is that debate going on? If you look at the UN SDG 13 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, it's focused on climate action. And according to reliable data, it's believed that over 60% of the greenhouse gas emissions are from fossil fuels. That's why when you're on the news, you'll see on the streets, you'll see climate change activists saying, don't be a fossil fuels fool, leave alone the oil and gas. And that's a very interesting debate because in Uganda, we're at a time where we want to develop our oil and gas resources. But with the energy transition, given this need to shift to a low carbon economy, we have experienced various risks. We are seeing legal risks. We are lawyers here. So what are the legal risks associated with the energy transition? Some of the laws that are being introduced in different countries are directly against the oil and gas development. We saw in 2020, the European Development Bank passed a resolution that they would no longer fund fossil fuel projects. In Norway, a country that has developed because of the oil and gas, they also passed a law to the effect that they would no longer support oil and gas developments. But however, in the energy sector, obviously in Uganda, in Africa, we have unique energy challenges. Most people would call it energy poverty, and my book was on energy poverty, but I don't even agree with that term because we are not energy poor. We have all the energy resources in Uganda, in Africa, so we're not energy poor. We just need to manage the resources very well. But anyway, according to data, over 600 million people in Africa lack access to modern energy. And that means that you would need all the other forms of energy, be it fossil fuels, renewables, to be able to tackle the various energy challenges. But however, there are various risks associated with this energy transition. There are various risks associated with climate change. One of those are the legal risks. We are seeing many companies being dragged to court because it's believed their actions or their projects are not in alignment with the net zero goals. The other important thing is the financial risks. Because with the energy transition, we're also seeing finances transitioning to a low carbon economy. And countries are finding it hard to finance these oil and gas projects. We're seeing the social risks because with this energy transition, some countries are unable to develop all their energy resources, implying that the energy challenges are escalating. But now let me try to connect the energy sector to the mining sector. I know my colleagues will talk about this. The funny thing is, with the energy transition, you need the mining sector. You need the minerals, because most people will ask, what exactly are you transitioning from? If you want us to transition to solar energy, to wind energy, you would need wind turbines, you would need solar panels, and those are made up of minerals, which most people would call the critical minerals. But what kind of fuel is used in generating those minerals? It's fossil fuels. So are we really transitioning? And as lawyers, you really need to critically think about these issues. Find out where exactly you stand, what opportunities are presented by both the oil and gas sector, by the renewable energy sector, by the mining sector, because they're all interconnected. And then the other thing that I would maybe mention, so that I don't take up so much time, is in my 2020 book on the energy transition in Africa, I introduced the novel concept of energy progression, because often at time, African countries, developing countries, you will rely on the literature or even on terms from other countries, but it's time for us to redefine our own terms, redefine your own laws, make up or enact laws that are going to work for you, and also move with concepts that are going to work for you. So that's the brief introduction about the energy transition, its connection to the mining sector, its connection to our everyday life, because this is energy, electricity is energy. We use it here, we use it in our homes, we use it in our industries. So this is an issue that is not only for the energy experts, but it's also important for lawyers. It's important for every person. I saw in Uganda really recently put restrictions on the use of charcoal. So how are people reacting to that? Can you afford the energy that you want people to shift to? Or are you just going to transition without providing cheaper alternative options? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nalule. It's quite interesting to see the mindset of this debate. I think a lot has been, the way the debate has been separated. It's like there is Africa, the case for Africa on one side, what you're saying, who are developing. And then there is a case for the developed countries like the Norways that you've mentioned, and all these countries that have gone before us, used the fossil fuels, the energies to develop their countries. And now that they're there and there is a whole mess around the globe and the climate and all the emissions that they've generated, it's suddenly there's this wake-up call that, okay, we need to have this transition, get away from fossil and then move into the renewables. This is where I would want to pick Professor's mind. Professor Raphael, I think I'm doing it the Ugandan way where we beat microphones to see if they're working. So I want to look at the screen and see if it's there. Okay. So Professor, my question to you is, I want you to just give us the realistic perspective and what is causing this debate. You being a practitioner from Europe and, these developed countries, if I can pack them in one class, and then what they are saying to us as the Africans. What are the key issues that you see are relatable in the two perspectives? What are they actually saying to us in regard to this transition? They have developed, we are still developing. We believe that we can do it sustainably, but we want to critically understand this debate. So if you can please share with us what are the nitty-gritties of the proposition they are making, and what do you think is relevant to us as Africans or Uganda to bring it back home? Thank you.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure and an honor to speak to everyone today. And in terms of your question, what I would say is that for many years it has been some of the leading, let's say, developed world countries that have been causing a lot of the problems, and we should also remember that many of the companies who are working in Africa are foreign energy companies that usually belong to some of these countries like Canada, the UK, America. So I think when we hear the different terms, I think, there are many out there in terms of the research and in terms of practice. And I think one of the things that is actually going to be discussed in, I think, maybe around 10 days' time at the Africa Climate Week organized by the UN and will be held in Nairobi in Kenya, that one of the things there is to have a more common understanding of the different principles in operation for energy. And I think, as Dr. Nalule said at the start, I think part of the expectation today should be to place more weight on some of the foreign operators as they are operating in Uganda. And I think from that point of view, Dr. Nalule highlighting the point around risk, I think that's a key message that I would also like to say, is that when we think of oil and gas today, part of the issue in the energy transition is essentially this is a technology revolution, and no country across the world really wants to be left behind in this technology revolution. And remember, this clean and green technology, it spreads to every part of our everyday life, from spreading to our cars, possibly our fridges, washing machines, all this energy efficient technology. And that's what is growing more and more. And that's where the critical minerals, the mining issue comes in. And what I would say is, and I think it's something that will be discussed by several governments next week at the Africa Climate Summit, is that idea of leapfrogging. For many countries such as Norway, yes, they developed with oil and gas and coal, but actually, is that today the best way to grow and develop? And if there's a chance to leapfrog and use this clean energy and avoid a lot of the risks that come with oil, gas and coal, this might be an alternate strategy. And I would just like to highlight, in terms of those critical minerals, this is where, to go back to the risk issue, and I think this is where, some of the risks, again, a great opportunity for lawyers to think about how they contract away all those risks. And one of the big ones, I think, is around taxation. And I think instead of, let's say, in the past where oil, gas, coal, a lot of the money went back out to international companies, I think there needs to be a change. And when the critical minerals industry begins to grow, I think a lot of the taxation revenue this time needs to stay in the country so that they can use it, to help improve the livelihoods of people in the country. So that would be my message, is that there needs to be a new thinking around how to develop these critical minerals. And I think in certain countries, they are looking at challenging the existing way some of the operations were done by foreign companies. And I think that's where lawyers can come in and help manage these risks, because if we're looking for finance for a project, whether it is nationally, we're looking for that money nationally or internationally. When we look at this from a technology perspective, people are looking at the higher risk for oil, gas, and coal projects, and actually a much lower risk for the critical minerals. So I think, the investors will be happy to come in where there's lower risk, and that's why we might see a bigger, let's say, explosion and bigger growth in business in the critical minerals. And I think lawyers have that opportunity to help reduce that risk. And let's say internationally, I would just add, as a reminder, this is a technology race, and I think every country needs to try and make sure it's not left behind in this technology race. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing those insights. I had asked you pronounce the university, the French name, so my learned friends can follow.
Yeah, so that's the University de Pays de la Dore.
I think I scored like 10 out of 10. Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing those insights. I would like now to drive it back home to us lawyers. And this context will go to Dennis Kusasira. Dennis, you are a titan in the mineral sector, you've been practicing for a while. And what I would want you now to really speak into is, how is this relevant to us now as practitioners? The mining sector on its own, there is so much that is going on right now in terms of laws regularizing the sector. Professor has talked about one of the critical issues is revenue taxation, ensuring that at least if we are to continue with the critical mining and, what the revenues that are coming out of this sector, are they really helping the country? Are they really trickling down? So I would just want you to speak into the nature and the kind of practice. Is this trend, the transition, things that we think we should be doing, are they really practical? Can they really be done? And how do we as lawyers, if possible, see this as an opportunity for us to jump into this energy transition agenda?
Thank you very much. I'll pick from Professor Nalole and bring it home to what for us Ugandan lawyers want to know. After all this is said, what is in it for us? We don't want just to listen to these things and say, okay, maybe things are happening globally, but what's the relevance of this to me, apart from the threat of stopping of production of fossil fuels? The lawyer wants to know, how does this translate into a bill for me, an invoice? Lawyers, I would encourage you to really take an interest in understanding the mining sector. Lawyers rarely, think about tapping into this rather very interesting sector, but I would tell you that lawyers have been associated with the mining sector since 1931. If you read, I think the Uganda Journal, 1940 or something, the first gold export license was taken out from Chigezi area by Hunter, who started the Hunter and Gregg farm. He was so keen on practicing law in that area. And since then, I think lawyers have not been really interested in this kind of practice. But to link this energy transition debate for lawyers, and I'm going to emphasize mining sector, because when we talk about climate change, energy transition, we are talking about things such as adaptation and resilience. a lawyer who has been practicing the oil and gas sector, and that sector is under threat, if at all, how does he then become resilient and remain relevant? I think the relevance now has to be switching to understanding how the mining sector works and how does it now link to the energy transition debate. You'll find some publications, I think, if you look at the publications by the International Energy Agency of 2022, it gives some very good and interesting facts on how the mining sector is relevant to this energy transition debate. Energy transition, as a professor said here, simply means shifting from fossil fuel based energy to energy produced from clean technologies, and this includes building of solar, photovoltaic power plants, wind farms, and to an extent, clean energy for electric vehicles. The facts are given that a typical electric vehicle would use 6 times the mineral inputs compared to the one that uses a combustion engine. So that shows you that in that area of energy transition, switching from fossil fuel-powered engine to electric cars would actually lead to an exponential increase in the demand for battery minerals such as lithium, copper, nickel, and others. Wind farms on their own would use 9 times the mineral inputs of a gas-fired plant. And wind farms, we know that they use minerals such as rare earth elements, copper, and those others that are reported in those reports. So since 2010, there has been a considerable increase in demand for mineral inputs for energy, and the demand has increased by 50%, and yet we are still seeing an increase in demand. Now, how is this relevant then to us as Ugandan lawyers? Uganda is not a typical mining jurisdiction. It's a frontier jurisdiction. Mining has not been really a main economic activity except back in the day between 1931 to the 1960s, when minerals worth about 30 million pounds were exported from Uganda, majorly comprised of revenue from copper and tin. Since then, there has been a decline for various reasons: political instability, policy instability, and the rest. But these minerals do exist that are relevant for the energy transition. Copper, all of us know it exists in Kirembe mines. And the government has been in the process of privatizing or divesting itself of this mine, and I believe there are opportunities for Ugandan lawyers. Graphite, which is critical for battery minerals, exists in the northern part of the country in Orom district. Nickel, same. Tin in western Uganda. Lithium in the Kigezi area, and rare earth elements, if you've heard of a large project that's being undertaken in Mayuge district called the Makutu project for a very huge deposit of rare earth elements. These are projects that are happening, and from my experience on now other projects in the oil and gas sector is, you can imagine one project can have so many law firms involved in it. My colleague Sim Katende will tell you that the ECOP alone, I think, I don't know, started with ABMAC as the principal advisor, but we've seen Katende and Sempe were playing a role as lenders council. I have seen Shonubi Musoke playing a role as counsel for the insurance company that will underwrite the debt. I have seen Otis, I have seen many other law firms playing a role around land acquisition. So a project like this rare earth element project, a project like Kirembe Copper, a project like graphite in Orom, tin in Tungamo, has a lot of opportunity for lawyers. So I want to conclude by saying that there is no doubt in the energy transition debate, mining is going to be the key, because production of, building of technologies that produce clean energy requires actually mineral inputs than more than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I think we can now see how relevant the whole transition debate is. In as much as it is a debate, we know, or we now understand, that the transition cannot happen without the mineral import. And thankfully, just as Dennis has shared, Uganda is one of those countries that can really contribute to the transition debate. So I would like to pause on the mining and quickly jump into the oil and gas. So the oil and gas, or commonly referred to as, what we are talking about, the fossil energy. So we all understand that this is a finite resource. At one point in time, we wake up in the morning and they'll tell us the oil and gas is done. Let's move to the next resource. So I will, to loop in the oil and gas discussion, I will start with Barbara. Barbara works with the Uganda National Oil Company. And again, Uganda, we are like the baby in this sector, in this whole fossil fuels, participating really and seeing that we can also produce oil and gas and put it right there into the global economy. So my question to you is, when we're talking about this debate, fossil fuel, is it still relevant to us as Uganda? And are the concerns really concerns for us as Uganda? Because I want us to drive this home. Are those concerns really concerns for us? Or is Uganda late? As usual, they always say Ugandans, we are late, but we show up in style. So have we just walked into this thing and we are like, we are late, but we are there? Yeah, we've arrived. So just bring this whole, from the oil and gas perspective, and being that you are with the Uganda National Oil Company.
Thank you. Are fossils still relevant? I don't know, as we all sit here, I hope you can hear me. Okay. I think Dr. Nalule touched this. Fossils are still relevant, and they will remain relevant for so many decades. They are still part of the energy mix for the globe, not just Uganda, but the rest of the world. And why do I say this? Today, all of us, the items we use in our homes, the items we use in our offices, many of them have an input from crude oil. Many of them. Many of us, and most especially Africa, 30% of our GDP in Africa relies on agriculture. For agriculture to give us the outputs that we need fertilizers. The fertilizers we produce from outputs coming out of crude. So fuel, fossils will remain relevant for us. But bringing it home in terms of monetary terms, today, I think the GDP of Uganda is about $45 billion. I think $45 billion. When this industry will start the production and we are able to export and refine our crude, our treasury will be receiving $2 billion annually for over 25 years. And I think that is something we need as a country. It is going to enhance the livelihood of many Ugandans. We're not going to distribute money on the streets, but I think the country has set itself in a place whereby the legislatory regime is enough to protect those resources for this country. If any of us have addressed our mind to the Public Finance Management Act, in there is a detail on how the revenue from petroleum is going to be protected and what is it going to be used for, mainly infrastructure development. So that fund is going to be protected and the money will benefit all of us and improve our livelihood. The other key benefit that is going to come to us is the issue. All of us are suffering from energy poverty. I know Dr. Nale mentioned that she doesn't agree with that concept, but I think today it's a concept we are dealing with. Your grandmother in the village, what is their source of energy today? Many of them are still using charcoal. Many of them are still using firewood. But the crude we are going to be producing, we are not allowed to flare, we are not allowed to vent. What is going to happen is that we are going to tap the associated gas and be able to produce LPG. And we're going to be able to produce a magnitude of over 300,000 tons, and that is enough to supply the market today in East Africa. So that is going to facilitate the shift we are talking about to transition. So indeed, the fossils are still relevant, and they are relevant for Uganda. Uganda is not late in this game. It is our time as Uganda. Everybody else did what they did with their energy resources, with their fossils, and they have been able to industrialize their own countries. All of us have read the Vision 2040 for this country, and we know oil and gas is meant to be a precursor. We don't want it to be a curse for this country. So the resources we make out of oil and gas are supposed to enhance the other industries, most especially agriculture, and also to drive industrialization. One of the things we intend to do is to have the Kabalega park, industrial park that is going to be set up. In that park, we are going to have many industries, a couple of Aka industries that are necessary. The petrochemical industries are going to be set up here. We're going to be able to produce fertilizers. We're going to be able to produce chemicals that are required for this country. We're also going to be able to give inputs for other industries. So we're going to drive industrialization in this country. The plastic used to construct the PVC pipes, all of them, they have an input from oil. So we need oil. I don't think I can emphasize this. And 83% of the energy the globe utilizes is from the fossils. So the fossils are still relevant in the energy mix. We well know that when you're going to set up any solar plant, when you think about the cost of setting that up, it's very high. So in that regard, we are going to still rely on fossils. For LPG, we are going to rely on the fossils to give us AGO, to give us PMs that we are going to use for our cars. I don't think we can afford today electric cars when we still have load shedding. So what are we transitioning to? When your mother in the village is still using firewood, ourselves, we can't afford electric cars. Where are we going to charge them from? So the transition conversation has to be balanced. It can start somewhere. However, we need to be cognizant of our current state in Africa, our current situation in Uganda, and take steps that are actually aligned to our current situation. We cannot afford to abandon our minerals. We cannot afford to abandon the fossils in the ground just because there is an emerging conversation on energy transition. It's going to be a journey for us to transition, but we cannot just jump from nothing and get into cleaner energy, renewable energy as Uganda. We need the resources that will drive us there, and part of those resources are going to be obtained from the oil and gas sector that is going to be enhancing our GDP, where we are standing at 45 today, and we are going to benefit about $66 billion will be coming into our treasury. But also on top of that, we're already tapping into this. Dennis touched about, on the many law firms that have been supporting the industry. But beyond the law firms, you have clients who are not necessarily the IOCs or UNOC that have actually been approaching you and you've been rendering services to them. because they need to service the industry as contractors, and therefore they've been approaching you and you've been rendering services to them to review their contracts, to support them on setting up even items related to ESG, because we demand that actually people are compliant not only to the Ugandan laws, but also appreciate the international principles, including protecting the environment and being cognizant of the energy transition and also national content aspects, where we want everybody to benefit from the oil and gas sector. Are we blind to the fact that energy transition is necessary? No. We are quite aware, and I think I will have an opportunity to speak to what we are doing to ensure that we are sustainably exploiting these resources.
Yes,
I'll
we will.
beg to stop here.
Yes, thank you.
And just emphasize that fossils are going to remain relevant to the energy mix, not only in Africa, but also elsewhere in the globe. 83%, if there's any message you want to leave with, 83% of the demand for energy, all the consumed energy in the world, comes from fossils. Can that be closed off today? The answer is no, because we don't have affordable, sustainable alternatives for our people, even for ourselves. So in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to be able to think of those alternatives that we are going to offer the populace before we can think of fully transitioning to cleaner energy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for emphatically highlighting the relevance. I should have gotten some judges for this debate, because it's a debate, so at the end of it, we're not going to just leave without knowing who has taken it home. So can I have some volunteers? The proposers and opposers, at least we must leave this debate when we know that this is our stand, isn't it? The proposers and the opposers. So thank you so much, and I like the fact that you're bringing it home, and we are kind of seeing the mind of the government, the kind of policies that are being shaped, the laws, and speaking from that, I think it kind of drives this framework and why we can confidently say that we are not late. We are as early as Uganda can be, and we are ready to explore the oil and gas. Sandra, being that you are with the actual people, you're the people on ground, Sinok. So these are the oil companies that now are exploring, the ones who have arrived right on time, our time to do this for us. So I just want you to give us perspectives from the oil. So now let us also understand the mind of a typical international oil and gas company as you come to explore with the energy transition in mind. Barbara has hinted on ESG, so we know the relevance of the environment, the social, and all these aspects that now we are working with. How are you doing it in terms of ensuring that there is positive work between the company, the community, and ensuring that everyone, we've heard of people sharing how they are eating money in these deals. We are coming also. There are some lawyers here who are really, really eating. But also I like the fact that not just the lawyers, but even our clients who are servicing the industry, perhaps even our relatives. So how are you shaping that to ensure there's this equitable distribution of whatever is coming out of it, but at the same time, the relationship is being maintained?
Thank you, Asmahani. Thank you also to all the distinguished panelists. I feel like this is a really powerful panel. I know when we talk about energy transition, the oil industry is the evil boogeyman that is the reason why we have climate change, and they should leave the oil in the ground and whatever all the oil and the stop oil activists keep trying to tell us. But the reality is there's no such thing as an energy transition that doesn't take into account the important role that the oil industry has to play. As Barbara has already mentioned, over 80% of the energy mix is made by oil and gas. When you look at a barrel of oil, only about 20% of it actually goes to, let's say, the usual, how we normally look at oil, to power our cars and, to fill up our petrol pumps. But a huge chunk of the oil barrel actually goes into the petrochemical industry, into fertilizers, into so many essential items that we need in our day-to-day lives. So I can't even imagine a world where we don't have oil and gas. I don't know how it would exactly look. So what we would have to say is we need a broad energy mix in order to meet all our needs as human beings on this planet. So we need collaboration across all sectors. Even as we think about transitioning, probably we transition to a lower carbon economy rather than a world where oil and gas has no place. So I would say that when we go into the communities and we are trying to set up a successful project, we have to see how to make sure that the net impact of the project is going to be to produce an overall positive benefit for the community as well as for the country. So we look at it from two perspectives. There's the community engagement and then also the environmental and social aspects of it. So looking at it from community, we have to create good relationships with the local community. So you have a win-win approach. Try to get involved in stakeholder engagement by sharing information, by implementing and monitoring project activities, by getting regular feedback from the community so that you can anticipate the negative aspects of the project and deal with them in a timely manner and avoid disputes. So a responsible project should have good corporate social responsibility. A good project should comply with all the relevant regulatory requirements, and not just the local requirements, but even look beyond that and look for the best practices, look for what has worked in other parts of the world, look to higher standards than what could even be in the national laws. Like, for instance, we could look at the IFC performance standards as an even higher benchmark than some of our local laws. So I would say that under sustainable development, like for instance in the Kingfisher project, we try to make sure that the project affected persons are compensated and resettled in accordance with the resettlement action plans. We have good livelihood restoration programs that help to make sure that the project affected persons are restored even to beyond where they were before the project entered the project area. So this will be in things like business development, fisheries, financial literacy. We provide health equipment to medical facilities and also school equipment like library books and lab equipment to help the students in some of these very rural areas that are very poorly set up in terms of infrastructure. And then things like providing access to clean water, and so many other community interventions to make sure that the community is appreciative of the impact of the project in their project area, so that there's no friction and we get a good social license to operate. So I would say that's one good way of community engagement. Then when we come to benefit sharing, there are so many benefits, from employment to purchase of local goods and services. A lot of the local community has been able to either benefit as a supplier or as an employee. They supply raw materials. They've also been skilled, so there are very many vocational training opportunities in so many different aspects, like welding, like fabrication, and farming, improved farming, so that they're able to supply the project and make money. The children are going to school, the hospitals are stocked. So yeah, generally to basically end up with a positive impact on the community is one way that we can have a win-win situation.
All right, thank you so much, Sandra. And so we've had these perspectives and sharing, just giving us also the frame or just the frame of mind of your typical international oil company and CNOC to be very specific. The kind of interactions, just being able to operate within these areas. And I think some of these things are accessible. I've seen a lot of people going to these oil areas. I don't know, just by show of hands, who in the room has been or has had the opportunity to either pass through those roads or visit the actual projects. Okay, maybe just to, I don't know where the microphone is, but I would just want to just hear from one person who has been there to just give us, just a highlight or two of what you saw, if it's really, really a reality of what we are hearing from the oil companies, Like I say, this is a debate. We have to live here when we really know what side we are taking. So I don't know where the microphone is. All right, so just one person who has been in these project areas. I saw some hands up. Oh, yes. Your name and maybe where you work, and just to.
My name is Jane Okelowange. I am a member of the Leadership Core Tribunal. I've been through Bunyoro land, that is transversed most of those roads, like from Masindi to Pakwach, Masindi, Hoima, and what I've realized, the roads are very good. I think that is what I've observed. But recently, actually a couple of days back, I went through Pakwach over the bridge. For those who've been there,
0% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So we are a net zero country. Everybody wants to be like us. They're all moving to net zero. But we are net zero primarily because we are poor. We are not producing anything. So we are zero because we have nothing. Actually, where we are zero for us means nothing. So we are net zero because we are poor. Now what I want to submit is that there are those who believe, they don't say it, but the way they behave, it is as if they believe that poverty is a legitimate form of environmental conservation. That you must not do anything, and once you remain poor, you will be at net zero. So you don't add. So they say we need no new fossil fuel projects. That means that in Norway, they can continue producing. In America, they can continue producing. But to save the environment of the world, they require some of our people to be poor. So poverty is seen as a form, not said, but in my view seen as a form of poverty, as a form of environmental conservation. So these two things seem to be working hand in hand. Poverty conservation and environmental conservation. I think apart from the immorality of the proposition, I think the failure to realize that poverty conservation is no longer a form of environmental conservation. Maybe once it was, not anymore. If you think about Uganda, 86, we were 14 million people. We are now 45 million. The UK had 57 million people. They are now 67 million. That means the UK has grown in population terms at almost 2% in the last 30 years, part of it due to immigration, while we grow at literally 3% per year. It means by 2050, more people will be living here than there will be on the British Isles. It means that in the whole continent of Africa, we shall be looking at 2.5 billion people by around 2050. That means there will be more Africans than Indians and Chinese put together. You think we're going to keep these forests to continue sucking the carbon from the environment for rich people? We're going to cut them down. Where are we going to feed our 50 million Ugandans from? Where? So poverty, therefore, is a danger to the environment. If once poverty conservation was a good environmental strategy, today poverty conservation is a danger to the energy transition. I promise you, the forests of the Congo will not be there in 2060 if you require the Congolese to continue in darkness. The energy transition for Africa cannot be a transition from darkness to deeper darkness in a night that has no stars. You can't allow at least stars. So, back to your question, which I obviously forgot. In my long rant, the issue, if you look at the transition as it happens, we've seen in 2020, I think last year President Putin illegally invaded Ukraine, and we can have many debates about this, but clearly the UN Charter makes what happens there illegal. But after the illegal invasion of Ukraine, what did we see? We saw a reduction in fossil fuels. In fact, we saw a transition. We had less oil on the market. The result of less oil on the market was a higher oil price. Did we see mankind quickly move away from fossils? No. What did we see? We saw oil companies like CNOOC, except UNOC, but we saw oil companies like CNOOC, Total Energies, ExxonMobil, record tremendous profits. President Joe Biden said that ExxonMobil had become richer than God. We saw that. What did it mean, though, for us? Because it's good to see it on CNN. What did it mean for us, the higher oil price? The higher oil price meant that the war in Ukraine hit the poorest people the hardest. We drove at 10,000 shillings a litre because of the price of fuel. It didn't cause a transition. It just brought misery to the poor people. We need a transition that is just. And what is a just transition? A just transition is not a transition paid for by the poorest people in the world to subsidize the richest companies in the world and isolate them from wars. A just transition means that Uganda's poverty, that Africa's poverty must be conquered by the use of Africa's resources. We cannot continue having a situation where the demand for oil has gone up this year. In this transition, we have an increased demand. Increased demand, reduced supply equals increased price. Increased price, for those of us who did hair history, economics, and literature, we know that increased price of an essential commodity means you are hitting the poorest the hardest. You are importing inflation. Inflation, as we all know, is a massive tax on poverty. You imagine you have 1,000 shillings and a loaf of bread is 1,000 shillings. Imagine the next day it is 2,000 shillings. Your poverty has been taxed. So, in summary of the question, the precise answer to your question. One, it has to be just. But two, I am not advocating for irresponsible development. While we go ahead to develop, these people here must be responsible in the conduct of that development. We must not allow to see the sort of risk and pollution that we are hearing about happen. We must make sure that we develop these resources responsibly. But we must understand that environment and economy, for us at least, are no longer enemies. They are two sides of the same coin. Finally, we are looking at a transition which has to be just because as we talk about this transition, as the European Investment Bank stops funding of fossil fuels, as the European Parliament condemns directly Uganda's oil projects, as the World Bank also stops funding of fossil fuels, as the Secretary General of the UN condemns the fossil fuel industry, UK, 100 licenses to oil and gas companies. Norway, 53 licenses to oil and gas companies. The United States is looking at 9,000 licenses. The Chinese are building 2 coal plants a day. When people are telling us to leapfrog, we need to be careful. For us who are in darkness, we can't see. Let us first get some energy that gives us light so we can leapfrog while we are seeing. Because those who are seeing, and then they're adding on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellison. So now I'll just want to turn the debate to the room. If we can have a few questions. We have about 5 minutes left, so can we take some questions or we can have, Brian? Can we take a few questions before we have our parting shots? Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. Oh, there's a question there. We can just take that one question and then get back to...
Thank you. I'm only donating my time to Barbara to tell us what they are doing. She had promised that she would get some time to tell us what they are planning and what they are doing. So I'm only donating my time to her. Thank you.
Okay, so Barbara, can you just tell us what UNOC is doing in this regard?
I think I cannot just speak for Uganda National Oil Company. I need to speak for our partners because most of these projects, we implement them in joint ventures. But probably before I speak to what we are doing, I think I need to bring everybody on board on where we are in the exploitation journey and the production journey. So as you're aware, the campaign of exploitation of the resources in Uganda went on until 2014. But the key findings were in 2006. That's when we announced that we have found commercial resources that can be exploited. And we had to undertake an appraisal exercise to actually determine how best we can be able to develop and exploit those resources. Today, we are at the development stage following the issuance of licenses in 2016. So these companies now have production licenses that were issued in 2016, and prior to the issuance of those licenses, we also had the regulatory regime and the institutions being looked to determine whether they can sustainably exploit the resources. Many people said Uganda is slow, but I think we took a step back to determine how best we can be able to exploit those resources with a framework that is sustainable, not just for 1 year, 2 years, but many years to come. So indeed, our laws cater for this. They cater for energy transition and protection of the environment. So what the joint venture team has done is to ensure we are compliant with the laws. We do not intend to flare or to vent. We are going to produce LPG and therefore contribute to the journey of people shifting away from biomass to actually using clean energy. At the same time, we are well aware that Uganda itself signed up to many international protocols, starting in 1994. In 2016, the Paris Agreement. We had the Kyoto Protocols in 2004. And these are being implemented by NEMA, by the regulator of the oil and gas. So we are implementing these protocols. Soon, Uganda National Oil Company will be launching an alliance to ensure that there is sustainable protection of the environment. We are sensitive and we have a clear policy on the environment, sustainability, and governance. And the same approach has been adopted by our partners. So there is quite a lot, and there is no single project we are implementing without ESIAs. So these evaluations are undertaken, and we determine. We want to ensure that there is a positive impact on the environment as opposed to negative impacts to the environment. And when it comes to the fact that ECOP is going to have the longest heated pipeline in the world, we have made sure that in terms of heating and keeping the crude at 50 degrees Celsius, we are using hydro power. And in Tanzania, we shall also have 5 solar farms. So we are thinking about the environment, we are thinking about human rights, we are thinking about the people, we are thinking about the impact of what our activities may have on the people if we do nothing. But I just want to remind everybody, Africa only contributes 3.8% to the greenhouse emissions. So the greatest work, the greatest adaptability steps have to be taken by the industrialized and the developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. So I would just want to take a 1 minute parting shot from the rest of our panelists. We'll start with you, Dr. Nalule. Your parting shots and your last view on this debate in regard to the mineral sector in the energy transition. Your parting shots.
All right, thank you very much. So one thing I would like to emphasize is we are not in a war. It's not all about who's producing and who's not producing. The issue is it's all about managing these resources, because we have seen many countries that have been producing these resources for a very long time. But what exactly is happening in those countries? Obviously, there are countries that have benefited. We're seeing the examples of Norway. We are seeing in Africa, Namibia, Botswana. But we also know of other countries like the DRC Congo. We know of what happened in Sierra Leone. We know of Nigeria. We know of South Sudan. We know of Angola. You can have these resources, and no one will stop you from utilizing them. but it's not guaranteed that it will help you to eradicate poverty. And another thing, another misconception we always see in natural resources or oil and gas is the resources will help you eradicate poverty. The resources will help you eradicate energy poverty. They will ensure economic development. That is the general rule. But let us implement the good laws that we have. Let us ensure that everyone benefits from the resources. Otherwise, it's not a war. It's all about countries using their sovereignty to develop these resources, but most importantly, to ensure that everyone benefits from the resources. It's an issue of management. We are not on war. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nabule. Professor Raphael, could you give us your 1 minute parting shot?
Yep. So I would echo one of the previous comments on the importance of a just transition. And I think the just transition, there really needs to be a clear starting point. The just transition is a journey. And I think identifying the journey for Uganda would be important, because I think once the journey is identified, the process towards a just transition, I think then investors can come in and get involved far easier. And I would just then say, back to the point around technology, the major point with the just transition is also about technology diversification. If you walked into any beginner's investment class, they would say you need to diversify your portfolio. And essentially, that's what the energy transition is. It's saying all countries all over the world need to diversify the energy portfolio. Relying just on a couple of energy sources has proved in many countries not to be the best economic policy. And I think these other energy technologies are coming down in price rapidly. And you only have to look in India, over 8 or 9 years, solar energy came down in costs by nearly 70 to 80%. And that's despite buying the solar panels from China. So for me, I think beginning the journey on a just transition can assist in solving many socio-economic problems as well as energy diversification. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I'll take it to Council Dennis. Your parting shots as a practitioner in the mining sector, sorry.
Thank you very much. I will say that for me, I want to be realistic. When we talk about transition, we can argue here and talk about passionate determination, but we have to be very careful on what is happening worldwide. You've had countries that have actually put a ban on importation of cars that are using combustion engines. And we know that very many companies are also committing to net zero. You've heard of Tesla, Toyota. Now, if they stop producing the combustion engine car, however much you are very determined to produce fossil fuel, you will have no market. If you agree that we are going to be producing about 200,000 barrels a day, approximately, and the demand for refined products in Uganda is probably right under 50,000 barrels a day, or 60 at best. It means that out of what you are producing, your refinery can take only, not even half. So you have to open your eyes and be realistic and think about adaptation. How can you utilize the oil and gas resources in other places other than energy? Because I can tell you, if the market out there rejects the fossil fuel, you have no market. But from the mining sector perspective, all is not lost. As I've told you, the energy transition means more demand for minerals. And as a country, we are lucky. I want you to follow closely as lawyers the project called the Makutu Rare Earth Elements Project. If you go to Bloomberg, you'll see this project is actually a very interesting one and can easily save us. It has about 500 million tons of rare earth elements that are needed in the production of batteries that are used extensively in the wind energy and electric vehicles. China right now controls about 90% of rare earth elements production. And what we have in Uganda, from what I have read, the geology that we have in that place where the project is similar to what is in China. So jump on the bus, start thinking about transitioning, and see how you can adapt. Ellison, as an oil and gas lawyer, you need to think about adaptation. How are you going to transfer your skills to a new sector if now things happen that you don't have control of? You have no decision to make what is happening in those markets. Lastly, I have an example in the mining sector. If you've heard about conflict minerals, have you had anything to do with conflict minerals? Minerals that have to go through a certain due diligence before they are exported to those markets. Gold, tin, wolfram, and others, the 3TG. I can tell you that if you don't comply with what that market wants, you cannot export anything, even if you have it in large quantities. So when you hear the market there talking about these things, don't just argue passionately. Think about how you can adapt. It doesn't mean that once we transition from fossil fuel to clean energy, that's the end of oil and gas. There are other uses, and I would encourage government to start thinking about what else can the fossil fuel that we have be used for. And for lawyers, I encourage you to take a keen look at what you can do in the mining sector. Luckily now, the law is new. So even me, what I used to know before has changed. We are going to learn together afresh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Barbara, 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Asmahani, and thank you to the advocates for listening to us. All I can say is that fossils are going to remain a part of the energy mix. We can't totally discard fossils and say we shall not use them. We are aware of the countries that have stopped production of those vehicles, but you can see they are committing to 2030, 2050, 2060. Do they always meet their commitments? No. Even the energy fund that was to be set up to support Africa, they are not feeding it with the necessary resources for adaptation. So I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that even when you look at the energy map, even when we produce and even find more resources in the Alberta and Graben, we shall not be able to hit number one. We are at the bottom. So we need to utilize our resources, and as Ellison said, in a responsible manner, and that's what we are doing. We are championing that. We are complying with the laws, and not only Ugandan laws, but also the international laws. But we are going to go ahead and produce the oil and gas for the betterment of Ugandans, and to also improve the livelihood of Uganda, and also our economy, and facilitate and spur the rest of the industries that will see this country benefit and grow to a better level. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Sandra, your 1 minute parting shot.
Sure. Thank you, Asmahani. Thank you to the audience for listening. So my parting shot will be yes, oil and gas is going nowhere. We need it. It's a very important aspect to provide a reliable and affordable way to fuel fair growth and improve living conditions. I'm more positive than Dennis, who is living in the future, but let's live in reality today. We have to think about producing with lower emissions, aiming towards moving to a net zero world. And oil companies are already aware of this. So for me, natural gas is exciting. It can help us to reduce our reliance on biomass, firewood and charcoal. We can go to cleaner cooking methods and improve so many aspects, including reducing deforestation. And there are so many new technologies coming up that are continuing to lower the carbon footprint of the oil industry. And through energy efficiency and creative, innovative methods of producing this oil, I believe oil and gas can continue to play a very vital role in our future worlds, even up to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so I think we need to promote the use of oil and gas as clean energy, looking at it from that perspective, that it is continuing to play a vital role in all our lives. So I'm very hopeful that there will be a future that has a big role for oil and gas to play.
Thank you, Sandra. Council, Ellison, your parting shot. I hope it won't be a short.
It will be short. It will be a short. I agree that energy or natural resources are not a panacea or for development. That the mere presence of a resource, oil, gold, copper, creates automatic development. I accept the proposition that is not 100% accurate. I accept the proposition that we need to adapt where necessary. But I want us to also, what I don't want us to do is to remain in darkness. We need to get out of darkness and enter marvelous light. We need to understand that today as we speak, there is a higher demand for oil today than there was last year, at this time last year. We must understand that the simple economic, we've learned that saying that you've made oil scarce, we have seen doesn't necessarily lead to a jump to renewables. What we have seen it leading to is an increase in price. And we have seen that an increase in price has operated as a driver of global inflation, and that inflation has hit the poorest people the hardest. I think going forward, we need to look at the energy space with a very broad mind. Yes, we need to be there in the renewable space. And we need to understand that renewables is about, as one speaker said, it's about technology. And if we're not developing the technologies, we are not there. Yeah? We are just not there. We shall remain a complete importer of solar panels. Imagine the sun is here and the panels are in Canada, where the sun is not there. If we do not develop the technology that is required, we shall move from importing the petroleum to importing the panels. We shall move from poverty to deeper poverty, from darkness to deeper darkness in a night that has no stars. So my point is not that we shouldn't adapt. My point is let's adapt. Let us have this conversation not just about oil and gas, about critical minerals as well. Let's have this conversation on a wide scale, a scale about increasing value. Because I can tell you, if we are 45 million people today, one of the largest issues in the British Isles, if anybody follows UK news, is immigration. They had 60 million. We are reaching 100 million before you can blink. We need to make sure that the people who are living here, we're looking after them. And this resource needs to be developed. It's not a question of passion, as people are saying, that is a war, or I'm passionate. But I think it is important to be, nobody who was not passionate about leaving poverty ever left it. You have to be passionate about these things. Thank you very much.
About our fees. Thank you so much. A round of applause to our distinguished panel. So to the room, who has won this debate? Eh?
The eyes have it.
The eyes have it. So we do our oil. Yeah? We arrive and do it proud. Yeah? All right, so thank you so much. I think for me it's just a just transition. Let's do it, but let's do it in our own time. We arrive late, but we'll arrive. So thank you so much to my distinguished panel. Thank you so much to our audience, and we wish you great sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. A deep round of applause to our panelists. If you could just stand for a group photo right there. Mr. Oh, okay. But I think you will all agree with me that if there was ever, if there was ever a panel that is disrupted, it is this panel. Because they are futuristic, present, adapting, transitioning, perspective, darkness into marvelous light, darkness to deeper darkness. I think what is clear is that it's all about perspective. Okay? Another round of applause to the panel, and thank you, Asmahani, for an excellent job. So very quickly, before we transition into the next panel, which is an exciting one to do with the creative industry, and we have some artists in the room, I thought I should tell us lawyers about a little creativity. Yes. So we'll invite all of us to stand. We're going to shake a bit, stretch our arms. Please do stand. Please do stand. As Mahani started us off, stretch your hand. She says we need some music. I don't know if the DJ will play some music for us to stretch a bit. You agree? DJ, do you have a number? Please do stretch out. You could touch your toes, touch your knees. Make sure you spread your hands out wide, and then you can please resume your seats. I'll now invite... Thank you, DJ. Osbert Kanyesije will tell us very briefly for 2 minutes about the law firm management system, and then we'll go into the creative industry. So please, lawyers, as we're transitioning, let's hear where the industry is going. Osbert.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, LS through Stanbic Bank, for this opportunity. My name is Osbert Kanyesije from Smart Case Manager. I'm here to share with you on how you can streamline the operations of a law firm as you cut costs and also serve your clients better. Ours is actually not a disruption. Ours is redefined law practice with support. This is not to disrupt how you do your work, but how we can support your work to do it faster and better and more effective. On the screens is how you'd operate using the manual systems. When using manual systems, you're doing the same things but from different places, as you can see, and this creates disorganization. And statistics show that if you're using a manual system, you spend almost 40% of your time doing what we call administrative work, which is totally outside the client's work. So I'm going to give you a small glimpse into how the system looks like. And some of the questions we answer are the questions that you ask your support people. These are the registry people, these are the accountants, which you ask them and they take time to give you. Like most of the questions are, what is the status of the file? Which documents are on the file? Which invoices are on the file? As I'm going to show you, a digital register, a list of all your